Welcome to Bitcoin Aggregated. We got a lot of stuff to get through today because we've had a couple of weeks off. It's been a lot sort of happening in the news. A lot about mining, which we might kind of save some of this stuff for the Alpha podcast after this one. But wanted to kick off just talking about podcasting 2.0. So I've finally figured out how to actually get podcasting 2.0 connected to, like, I got it with the IPFS podcast up and running, but for whatever reason, like, just wasn't talking to my node. So there's a really good service that does it for you called Albi, and basically, so we've got it up, Bitcoin Aggregated. I got the Bitcoin Australia meetups, Alpha Hash Rate, and School of Bitcoin, curriculum design, and faculty meetings, all sort of posted up. But the really cool thing, I just went back in time and kind of re-uploaded everything, so it was all kind of there. But the really cool thing was my phone, set it up, and I'm like, oh yeah, where you go, cool. It's connected to Albi Lightning address, connected to my node, and you check this out, my Blue Wallet just loaded it up. I was like, oh cool. It's a whole bunch of people listening and streaming sats like immediately. I was like, oh my god, it's so cool. So far it's like 440 sats, but literally you can see all these people like streaming. So as they go through this fountain app, they're like, 1 or 2 sats, whatever it is that they're streaming for, but it goes back for like a full week of people listening. I was like, oh, it's awesome. So it's
does that happen regardless? Like, where do the sats come from? The sats come from the listener, or
the listener? Yeah. So
they don't have to donate, but they can donate. Is that
that's right? So you can listen on Fountain without putting any sats, but basically, I think most people put like 1 sat per minute or whatever it is. So as they're listening, it just streams the sats to you, and that's just such a cool thing. There's a few people that did like bigger donations. Like, there was a few for like 16 sats for some reason, and 90 was one of them. So I was like, oh, that's awesome. So yeah,
very cool.
Yeah, people actually listening to it on podcasting 2.0. So you get the stats off YouTube and you get them off Spotify that we're on, and you can kind of see who's listening on there. But the fact that they're listening on the Lightning Network, I was just super excited about that. So yeah, thank you to whoever. It's all anonymous as well, so you don't know who it is, but it's pretty cool.
For those who perhaps aren't as familiar with this concept of podcasting 2.0, do you want to just like give us a quick elevator pitch of what's actually happening here? What makes this different to regular podcasting, other than being able to get sats rewarded to you?
Really good point. So basically, you have Spotify, like an RSS feed that talks to like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, like all the regular ones. So they're centralized kind of gatekeepers for listening to whatever stuff that you're putting up on an RSS feed.
So they host it for you, or
no, they're just literally talking to your RSS feed and pulling the data out and then sort of pushing it forward to whatever,
and monetizing it.
Yeah, so I mean that's fine, and it works pretty well, and a lot of people listen that way. Podcasting 2.0 basically takes that, so it's the same RSS feed. You plug it into this, system, and you put your Lightning address. You don't have to put your Lightning address. You can just list it without that. But the magical thing with putting your Lightning address for your node in is, like I was saying, the fact that people can actually donate or stream, or they're actually called boosts, or Insta boosts or something, I think they're called, when you actually get a donation. But the streaming aspect is people with an app like Fountain. There's a bunch actually. Let's have a look. Apps. All these podcasting apps can actually play, like mostly through Android and iOS, but play podcasting 2.0, which means you can set up a Lightning wallet in the app and then stream out as you're listening to people. So the idea for value for value, Sphinx Chat's another cool one. So that's basically you can chat over the Lightning Network as well, like while listening to stuff in real time together. But yeah, basically the idea is instead of having like sponsors or having to jam ads into podcasts, now we can actually do it so it's peer-to-peer. So you have the listeners giving you money directly for whatever content you're putting out there. And I think the model, if done correctly, which it kind of is already, just has to be made a bit easier, I think, for people. It's cool, man. So like the idea of like, for example, like what Bitcoin did, jam-packed full of ads, some of them better than others. We don't need that anymore, right? So we have these sort of systems, so it's completely peer-to-peer. So pretty exciting. I was pretty pumped, and like the fact that it was people listening off the bat, and I think it was the Bitcoin Australia meetup. So that's the Tribrid model that we've kicked off. Speaking of which, I've got a space now officially. So you guys will have to come to Frankston next time you're down. But in Chisholm, we've got the space set up, and it's cool, man. Really, really cool. I was at a social ventures night or social enterprises night the other night, which is awesome. So basically what we like the event they were running was essentially what we're building with the School of Bitcoin. I just didn't realize it was called a social enterprise. Like there's a whole thing built around that. So it's quite cool. So it seems like a lot of like-minded sort of people in there, maybe not necessarily in the Bitcoin space, but now we'll be able to run the Bitcoin meetup. So that'll be sort of advertised out through to Chisholm as well. So anyone can pop in. So it's going to be pretty cool.
When's the first one of that going to happen?
So that is, it's the first Thursday of every month. So whenever that is, I'll tell you now.
So the first one will be August.
Yeah. So
is that one going to be? That one's going to be in Victoria.
Yeah, I think I'll do it here. So I know Gordon. I need to find out on Wednesday. Actually, I know Gordon and Electra wanted to run one, and I was like, "Yeah, you guys do the next one, sort of thing, and stream it from there." But it might be nice to sort of kick off from the new space and sort of christen it, I suppose, because it's pretty cool and there's a lot of people excited about it. First Thursday of every month. So
just for an hour, or
just for an hour? Yep. Yeah, we'll keep it to that. And
there's no way you're going to stop people talking for Bitcoin for an hour.
Oh well, no, we've been pretty good so far. Actually, we had a guy from Zimbabwe or African country, not Zimbabwe. Anyway, he jumped in, like found out about the meeting. So if you watch the last or listen to the last meetup, it's mostly him talking about like onboarding people to BTC, like in his community. So that's cool. And like how we could sort of support him. So yeah, it was awesome. Oh, Tanzania. So he said like there's not much sort of support or anything in his area, but he's kind of taken it upon himself to learn about it. In fact, it was his first Zoom ever. He jumped in just off his phone.
Crazy stuff.
It's amazing. Yeah, it's really, really cool.
Well, I might try to make it. I will make it. It's a matter of whether I make it in person or I make it virtually. But that's, I guess,
or in VR.
Or in VR. Yeah, I need to get myself some VR gear.
Yeah, a Quest. That's the way to go.
I think so.
But anyway, so kicking off with there's a lot of stuff in the news that we should probably get to. This one I wanted to start with. I don't know if you've seen this website. So houses priced in BTC for like Australian. This is from Bitcoin Bush Bash. I don't know. You might have posted like this to me originally.
Yeah, I wanted to go to this, but the flights are like crazy expensive and not that good. I was looking this morning, actually. It's coming up at the end of the month in Yeppoon in Queensland. But I know most of the people going to this and stuff. I've always wanted to go to a Bush Bash because I think it's one of the cooler events. But I haven't seen this website, but this is cool.
Yeah, it really struck me. So Tiggs actually posted this. So shout out to Tiggs. But he sent this was it yesterday, I think. And I was like, oh, this is awesome. Like an actual chart looking back at how much a BTC would buy you in terms of like the median price of housing. I mean, it's quite clear like what the trend is, sort of thing. But I thought it was really nice to have a succinct thing that you can reference. So I remember years ago, would have been around this point. When did we first hit 5K? Do you remember? Was it like 2016?
Would have been the run up during 2017, I think. Yeah,
17. So it must have been. So it would have been around there. It was like literally hit exactly on 5K, and they're basically my folks had come back from Ireland. Mum was looking for a car, and we found, like, because I drove a smart car, as you know, we found like another one. It was exactly like $5,000. Like, oh, that's cool. So like we went to pick it up, and yeah, this guy, like, English as second language, is Italian guy. He like didn't we tried a bank transfer, we tried PayPal, we tried like a credit card. Everything was like just wouldn't work. It was like end of day. Like, oh man. So I ended up giving him like a 1 hour BTC lesson and bought a car for mum for exactly one BTC. Like, fuck, it was so cool. But
and he accepted it.
Yeah. So he did it, and
I wonder if he hodled it.
No, he did it because he emailed me. Actually, it was like the bull run, because he emailed me like a week later, and it like just skyrocketed from there. He's like, "Oh, as a stupid, I sell the Bitcoin. I should have held on to it." But yeah, I remember talking about that and saying, "Yeah, well, that one BTC, like, it's a car now, but it'll be a house down the track." And it's very hard for people to wrap their heads around that, right? So it's like these tangible items, but having something like this really shows the trend towards that, right? So I thought, oh, it's cool to see people sort of thinking, particularly Australians, thinking around the same line, sort of thing. So we haven't got long to wait until it's one BTC for a house, I don't think.
I mean, it's those prices I think are a little bit out of date, at least the most recent one. But I mean, I'm pretty confident we're probably going to see that and then some. So yeah, we're almost into single digits in some of those places. I think Adelaide was like pretty close to 10.
Yeah,
it's pretty wild.
It's nuts, isn't it? South Australia, yeah. WA, yeah. Oh, God, Canberra is insane. I didn't realize how expensive. Makes sense, but yeah, God, that's like crazy money. Anyways,
yeah, it's where all the money lives.
Yeah, exactly right. Now, have you seen this one? People turning down Bitcoin.
I have seen it. Yeah.
Oh man. So I'll just
it's about Bitcoin. What is Bitcoin?
Oh bloody hell, Dylan, come back! I need help. Come here. You answer the questions with me.
Hell no.
I'll do it on my own.
It's about Bitcoin. What's Bitcoin?
Bitcoin?
Yeah, have you heard of it?
Blockchain currency, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a currency based on blockchain. Yeah, exactly. Have you ever bought any?
No.
No, her account got hacked though. It started offering out Bitcoin shit.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So you've kind of dabbled in it, have you?
No.
Okay. Have you bought any?
No.
You've never.
What did he say? Her account got hacked, like with that Bitcoin shit or something. How weird.
Yeah,
Like,
I'm not sure. It sounded like she had no idea, so I'm not sure what he was talking about. Maybe a bank account?
I reckon maybe like a scam or something popped up, and he thinks that's Bitcoin hacking him or something.
Probably.
But like, what kind of blew me away was when he's given them
It'll
away.
take like a minute. It's entirely up to you.
Actually, it's fine. It's fine.
This one in particular.
Are you sure? Are you going to regret this? Because do you know how much I was going to send you?
How much?
Well, how much is going to make it worth it?
Well, I don't know.
She wants £1,000. Nothing less.
£1 million?
£1 million. You want a million? It went from 1,000 to a million. How much do you think I can? How much do you think I was going to give you?
Like 100.
100 quid.
Yeah.
Actually, I wasn't even going to give you that. I was going to give you 40 quid.
Okay. Well,
is that worth it or not?
I don't know how to spend it, so I don't think so.
Okay, you don't want it.
No.
Okay.
Incredible, isn't it? The reaction, I don't know how to spend it, so it's not worth it. Like it's such a fiat mindset of like you don't have anything unless you're selling it all the time. It's amazing, it really is. And the peer pressure as well. It's like she initially said yes, and because all of her friends, and they're all like young too, you'd think like maybe it's just oldies that would be scared or whatever to install a Lightning app and accept some sats for free. But yeah, like it's just incredible.
We're still very early, so people are frightened by it.
Super early, but I mean, I've given sats away, and I haven't really come across it. I guess I wasn't sticking a camera in people's face and saying like this is going to be on YouTube, so they might think it's a prank or something. But at the same time, it's like, wow, how it is super early. Like that is the key. But the psychological thing and the I think this lady as well says yes, and then these all convince her, nah, stay away from that sort of thing. It's amazing. So it's like a microcosm for society, right?
Yeah, I think people are still looking for that validation from the government or from the regulators to say like, it's real money. Until then,
Yeah.
it's still very much a niche cypherpunk movement that I guess normies like this, are still frightened of. So yeah, we're super early. Like
Super early.
200,000 sats. Sorry, I'll take
Oh,
that.
yeah. Really like, yes, thank you. Yeah, amazing stuff. What was the other one I wanted to show you? There's a lot of mining stuff, so we might come back to some of that for Bitcoin, particularly some of this stuff. For Alpha, should I say? This one was good. So I don't know if you watched this full interview,
Your
but
currency gets stronger if you do intelligent things, and your currency gets weaker when you do irrational things. Right? So if you loved a country, you would want the leadership to do intelligent things. So what's intelligent? Generate a lot of power, like nuclear power that's cheap and easy, good road systems, good technology, efficient language, efficient currency, good legal systems,
Spend less than
not too much.
Spend less than you make.
Yeah, all of these rational things, right? Adopt a Bitcoin standard. All of these would be rational things. It would strengthen the currency, and it would lessen the inflation rate of the currency. If I want to create massive inflation, I just do the opposite. I declare war on 100 different things, and I spend 100x more than I take in, and I regulate everything and everyone everywhere, right? And that causes the currency to weaken, and in the extreme, completely collapses. So it seems reasonable that as Bitcoin grows and it gets better understood, rational nations will embrace Bitcoin holders and Bitcoin miners and Bitcoin companies. And as they embrace them, the politics will become more favorably disposed to Bitcoin. And as that happens, their companies will start to hold Bitcoin, and their families, and then eventually their institutions, and then their agencies, right? And as that happens, their currency becomes a Bitcoin derivative. So I think if you're going to build a higher level civilization, you have to be open-minded to a lot of different ways to work with the asset and different time frames. And when you go to the extreme, you undermine adoption, but you also undermine utility, because the real economy is going to be, you need Bitcoin at layer 1. You've got Lightning, a non-custodial open layer 2, and then you've got layer 3s like Cash App and PayPal, and the exchanges, and then you've got layer 4s, securities like MicroStrategy or GBTC, where we've literally got the thing embedded in what we are, and then you've got products. You could build it into products and services. You could build a Bitcoin into a Tesla. What if I had a Tesla and I bought the Tesla, and the Tesla basically was self-maintaining forever, right? Because I had enough Bitcoin in it to pay for all the electricity and also pay for the maintenance upkeep on the car. So all of these are different aspects of a digital economy, and they'll all be subject to different rules and different laws, and some things will fail and some will succeed. And if you just take an open mind and allow it all to evolve, I think people will start to see this as economically good for everybody, technically good for everyone, and morally, politically good as well. There don't have to be any losers here.
Yeah.
Everybody can be a winner. And if you go into the marketplace and your position is Bitcoin fixes this, well, how about just Bitcoin improves this? What if you went to every company, every product, every family, every country, every politician, everybody, and just said, I'm here from Bitcoin and we can improve whatever you're doing. It doesn't even matter what you're doing. It'll be better if you build some type of Bitcoin into whatever you're doing. There are no enemies. The world just divides into people that don't understand how we can help them yet, people that do understand how we can help them, right? And then people we haven't talked to yet.
There's so many nuggets of wisdom in that small clip. He's the king.
Yeah, I haven't actually watched that chat with Alex, although I've been meaning to, because Alex is a friend of mine, and he's always good entertainment value. But I think Michael has had this for much of his career, and he's just been ahead of his time. And I think he's really ahead of his time with some of the concepts he's talking about here. I think even to a lot of Bitcoiners who have perhaps been around the space for a long time, some of the concepts he's talking about are really pushing the needle. And I just, whilst I, agree with basically everything he's saying, I do think that the timing is a little off. He's just a bit too forward thinking, and people
that's interesting. Okay.
Well, I mean, people are just not there. Like, go back to the previous video we just watched about people not even accepting free money, and he's talking about embedding Bitcoin into basically everything.
Yeah.
So I agree, and the meme very much is Bitcoin fixes this, or if he likes to say Bitcoin improves this. And yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. But he's like right at the forefront of this kind of thinking and what Bitcoin can do. And sadly, the rest of the world is lagging behind.
Do you think it is like his thinking is too early, or do you think, because it is a contrast to those other people, but if you draw an analogy to like Linux, for example, not many people, like, I'm guaranteed none of those people in that video have ever touched Linux or even know what it is, but it's literally embedded into everything across the world, right? So like your fridge, your toaster, every device that is in your house. If you've got IoT devices, it's in.
That's a good point. And that is often an analogy that I've made, is like this technology will be successful and mass adopted at that point when nobody even knows that they're using it, like Linux. So yeah, I think that is a very, very good analogy and a good comparison to make. And yeah, maybe like Michael Saylor and the rest of us who are building in this industry need to know this and need to care about some of these things. But the rest of the population, wake me up when it's being used in the things that I use and I don't even realize it. So that's probably a fair position to make. I think.
Yeah, I think it's going to be, like, the exciting thing that he said in that, I thought, was like embedding it into the Tesla car. I'm like, yeah, that's sick. Like the idea of like an autonomous car, like owning itself essentially, because it's like running on the Lightning network, or has BTC to repair itself, to charge itself, like forever, as you said.
It could be like a lightning node, right? Like in the sense of like, what's the easiest way for me to get these sats to you via the nodal structure? And now like use that analogy for, say, automated cars, where a Tesla drives you to work, drops you off at the office, and then kind of goes and parks itself somewhere, waiting for someone to say, hey, I'd like to be taken from A to B. And then the network that it's run on figures out, okay, well, where's the closest Tesla? What makes the most sense in terms of who's got enough battery left to be able to provide that person? It's basically automated Uber, right? But it's owned by the individual who owns the hardware, in this case, the Tesla. That's a concept I've been like thinking about for a couple of years now. And I think it's only a matter of time before something like that. I mean, perhaps it'll be slightly different, but I do think that's what it will be like in the future. Where, already, I wouldn't say already, most people don't own cars. Most people probably do own cars, but it's a very inefficient system where cars are largely just sitting there parked most of the time, not doing anything except depreciating in value and requiring regular maintenance. Whereas, this type of system could much improve the efficiency of the car network by having it work when it is otherwise sitting there in a garage or on the side of the road. So I'm excited for Bitcoin integration, Lightning integration into Teslas.
I remember a few years, like Andreas did a talk about that and talked about like how, I forget how it went exactly, but basically he talked about how it's already happened once in Japan, where an object like a car, so like basically a car emancipating itself on the Bitcoin blockchain, and becoming, autonomous and kind of outliving all of us, just continuing on this network. It was around a guy who actually died in his apartment in Japan, had everything automated. So for years, he was like, no friends, no family, but all his payments were automated and his money was coming through from, government or whatever. But he was saying it's drew an analogy to this apartment like emancipating itself, but that comes to an end because you have fiat currency behind it. When you have the Bitcoin blockchain, you could have these devices that just last on sort of forever. Thought it was such a cool concept and kind of freaky as well. But I did like they had was either that talk or one around the same time, kind of leapfrogging from like automated Tesla cars to drones. It's like drones like they have in Dubai that you can actually get into, program it. They're autonomous. They take you where you want. Boom. Like we don't need roads anymore, right? So I think that's definitely on the cards as well. And he's right. Like Sailor's right with his thinking with this. Like, just got to be free with it. Like if you unleash it onto as many things as possible, it's going to fix or improve a lot of stuff. I like that.
Bitcoin I think like a lot of people, a lot of the sort of crypto crowd, I guess, would always argue sort of Bitcoin is very basic and narrow in what it can do, say, compared to like Ethereum or something like that. Some of these, layer 2 smart programmable blockchains, whatever you want to bloody call them. But I think over time we're actually realizing that there is much more that Bitcoin can do. And I think my eyes really opened up last year when I went to El Salvador, which we're going to again later this year, to the Adopting Bitcoin conference. That I've never been in a room, and I've been to many conferences, both shitcoin conferences and Bitcoin ones, and I've never been in a room where I felt more inspired in my life.
Yeah.
And so confident that this was the right piece of tech to be backing because of the builders and the developers in the room. It really did give me a lot of confidence that, and I'm sure there's many more that weren't in that room as well, also contributing. And that, I was just blown away. It really I came back from that even more of a maxi, just because of I needed it, and I think people should go to meetups. People should go to Bitcoin conferences if they have the opportunity to see all of the things that is being built. Because whilst it may be slow, and good things do take time. So I agree in that part. It's a very different approach to say Ethereum, where it's move fast, break things. But the unfortunate way of doing that is that a lot of people end up getting wrecked and scammed, and things break and don't end up doing what they hoped that they would do. Whereas Bitcoin is a bit more of a turtle approach, where it's slow and steady, but it's got a hard shell and it's hard to break. I think that will likely be the winning approach, in my opinion. But I mean, I don't have a crystal ball, so I don't know exactly what's going to happen in the future. But that's at least that's what I'm backing to be successful.
Well, it is slow, quote unquote. But to be fair, there's a lot of cool stuff getting built rapidly. You know what I mean? Like it's like there is the complaint, I suppose, that a lot of people in the Ethereum network, or these altcoins or Solana or whatever, they're sort of building stuff on them, and like not all bad stuff. Like there's some cool things getting built quickly, but the narrative is that it's slow on Bitcoin. But I don't think it is. Like you look at that podcasting 2.0, like, and all the apps just popping up off that. That's all off the Bitcoin network, and it's getting built quickly, and there's a lot of passionate people sort of building stuff. So yeah, I mean, it's not the base layer is slow, and that's good. Like you don't want that changing every week, but the stuff on top of it, I think, is getting, like, even stacks getting built on top of it. Like there's so many cool things that I think that narrative is going to die pretty soon. I think, along with, well, I mean, the FUD's always there, I suppose, but it'll die down in comparison with, some of the other FUD that's out there, like the, the whole environmental FUD that's out there. Like some of the posts on here, you can see like that's just going out the window. Like it doesn't make any sense anymore to still be bringing that up. So I've got a feeling that the same thing's going to happen with the time narrative as well. So yeah, all right. So let's go on to, we've got so much stuff on here that we haven't even looked at. Speaking of Ethereum, check this one out. If you're having a bad day, just remember somebody bought this for 500 ETH. Do you reckon like that's legit? Like, do you reckon that's somebody who saw that picture and said, yeah, I'll spend 500 Ethereum on that? Or do you reckon it's money laundering?
I mean, it could be either of the two.
A bit of both.
Yeah, I mean, either way, they're stupid. But yeah, I don't know. I don't even want to touch that stuff because it's just numbs
Silly.
my brain.
It's silly, it really is. Oh, going back to this one. So is this the one that we sent to you?
This doesn't look familiar.
Yeah, no, it is. So this is basically going through the concept.
Oh yes. Yes.
Yeah.
This is the unhosted wallets thing, or
yeah, unhosted wallets and signing devices. So like
that's right.
The concept is basically, rather than wallet, which I've heard a bunch online, I kind of didn't get it, and I think you're in the same boat as me. You're just like, why? That just makes it harder for people to understand. Like you need those analogies to legacy stuff, which I was just like, don't create like a new confusing thing for people. Like it's hard enough as it is.
Yeah.
But that being said, going through this, it kind of makes sense. So they're basically talking about regulators, and they're looking at, so the example is like these banking apps look very similar to a Bitcoin wallet when they're doing entirely different things. And so they're bringing in regulation under the guise of it being something like this, when it realistically is a signing device. So it was a really good article, and he kind of breaks it down why it's important for the narrative to sort of switch over to signing device, because that's essentially what we're doing, right? So there is nothing sitting on the wallet. There is no, so you have a hardware wallet, so you have a ledger, or Trezor, whatever it is, or even
it's literally just a key.
It's a key. It's a key.
The key that allows you to sign something.
Yes. Yeah. Which is like I was saying initially, I thought very confusing for people to understand. But I think if we do start going down that track, and using that sort of rhetoric, it might help people in the future. But yeah, what was your thoughts?
No, I mean, look, it's a more kind of technical point to be made, whilst I don't necessarily disagree to your point that you just mentioned of, we do need something that helps it kind of make sense and connects it to it's a part of the transition, right? Like we're not going to go from wallets to signing devices, UTXOs and all sorts of different jargon that makes no sense to the majority of people, even to many Bitcoiners. A lot of this stuff is intentionally obfuscated by these wallet developers because it's information you don't necessarily need to know. You should know as a Bitcoiner. You should understand how it works and what is actually happening on a technical level. But at the end of the day, it's just those fancy UIs that make things kind of digestible to most people. And I think, naturally, wallet was kind of the obvious place for it to go, right? I don't know how successful this push will be to move away from wallets and move them to sort of
it'd be pretty
signing devices.
Get all the big hardware developers, or like even software developers for these wallets to change like overnight sort of thing. So
it's a very altruistic kind of movement, I feel. So whilst I agree with it, and I would certainly not push against it, I don't have a whole lot of hope that it's going to be very successful on a mainstream level.
It's not
but
practical.
Happy to be wrong, because if the regulators are going to come here and regulate it on the guise of it being like a traditional finance application,
Yeah.
they're going to get a whole bunch of shit wrong, and we're going to be upset about that. So this is the effort to say, hey, here's our influence. Here's what's actually happening, and here's how perhaps it should be treated differently to TradFi stuff. So I still don't know how I think about or how I feel about regulation. It's like Bitcoin works. Why do I need someone to tell me what I already know, or to make some rules? I don't need them. That's the whole point of Bitcoin. Well, there's many points, but that's one of the points of Bitcoin, is that we don't need governments and regulation it's peer-to-peer.
Well, and the miners are the regulators, right? Like that's the point of them. You don't need
The miners and the node operators. Yeah, like the governance system's in place. Like it's been there since 2009. Like we don't need to change it. We don't need daddy government telling us, this is what we should do. Or I don't know. So I'm not that keen on regulation, or at least I haven't been convinced why it's a good thing, or what benefits I would perhaps get from it. Bitcoin works for me. It doesn't really need to change all that much. I'd be happy for it if it didn't really change, at least on a base layer. Sure, subsequent layers with other utility could like Lightning could exist, and I'm not going to stop that from happening, but the base layer just works.
That's right. Exactly right. This part was interesting. So talking about Blue Wallet, which is the one I was just showing you before, the Lightning Wallet, could pivot to the oil industry tomorrow and start calling itself Oil Wallet. The fact that people use Bitcoin as money is irrelevant to Bitcoin's nature. They exchange it for goods and services and money, while Oil Wallet is used to manage the exchange of barrels of oil. Common to all of this is Bitcoin is only a database. What you input is up to you and nothing more. So like the concept of, I really understand what they're saying with that. That's a really good illustration, I thought. So it's like placing like money with oil, money, quote unquote. Like it can represent anything that you want. It doesn't have to be, USD or wherever this is looking at regulating, whatever country it was. I think it was some European country, but I thought that was really clever, like good way of doing it. And then he goes on to saying like, WhatsApp uses the same encryption techniques as Bitcoin, but it's basically like just sending a text. So that's what you're doing with BTC, but instead of a text, it's a signature for a transaction. So
it's like calling WhatsApp a wallet of your messages.
Yes, exactly.
It doesn't make any sense.
No,
because this has a financial element to it, and it's the least of the things that I really care about. Because those who have listened to other podcasts and follow me on Twitter would know I'm not even checking the price of Bitcoin for the entirety of the year. But the fact that there is money to be made and people are, speculating on it, I think that makes more sense to be called a wallet than what WhatsApp would, because no one speculates on, messages. It just breaks. There's no way to compute that mentally. But it's a cool. I mean, people should definitely read the whole thing and see what they think about it for sure.
Yeah, what's up? Oh, WeChat, I suppose. Like with the,
they've got some sort of
CCP dollar.
Yeah. I mean, do they call? I'm not familiar with it, but do they call that a wallet now? Like, is that known as a wallet?
I don't know. I had well, they got they do. WeChat Pay. So I guess I'm not sure what the terminology is, but I guess it kind of makes sense. What's the other one to go through? Oh yeah, this is going back to what we were talking about before. So how early we are. So this is quite interesting. So the internet uses in 1997, 140 million. 10 years later, 3.7 billion. Bitcoin users today, 140 million. So around about 1997. I looked at that before I watched that video. There's people who didn't accept the BTC. And I'm like, oh my God, it really reminded me of, like, there's an old Dave Letterman clip from like 1994, 1995, where he has Bill Gates on, and Gates
trying to explain the internet.
The internet to him. What is internet? And he's like teasing him, saying like, because he's like, oh, you can listen to like a radio show, you can record it or like play it back anytime. and you can read stuff. And he's like, "Oh, ever heard of magazines? Ever heard of the radio? Ever heard of a tape recorder?" It's like, "Oh, dude," and like the audience is laughing too and like clapping, thinking that's wonderful. Dude, like you have one box that does all of those things, like in 1994 or 5 or whatever it is. Really reminded me of that. I was just like, oh yeah, that's where we're at. So I don't even think we're at 97. I think it's still earlier. But in
Yeah,
terms of
that's what I was about to say. But do you think like Bitcoin's going to have a similar adoption curve? Just like looking at these really rough numbers, like, you hit
maybe,
140 million 10 years later in the billions. Like, do you
yeah,
think that's possible?
it is. The only thing that might make it quicker is the fact that like onboarding to the internet in 1997 was very hard, right? You had to go through these weird companies, have like a shitty modem that half the time would like disconnect and make screeching sounds and stuff like as you're plugging it in.
What was it like in 2007? That was me just finishing high school.
It was pretty good. So it was pretty easy to get connected. You had like
Internet
from
service providers.
ISPs like from 2000 onwards, because I got cable first in 2000. That was a pretty straightforward setup and it was fast. In fact, faster than my internet I have now in my house, which is like sickening. Thanks, Australian.
20 years later.
But yeah, I do think it's a lot easier with BTC, right? Like everybody has a phone in their pocket and they can install an app like that. So
That's
I
true.
think it's just getting, it's the use case, I suppose. So like coming back to like we were talking about before, like having the need or the necessity. So like with El Salvador, everyone has the necessity, right? So they're installing it. Once those countries start piling in like that, it could be a lot quicker, I think. So I don't think it's going to be exactly the same, but I do think we're earlier than 97.
Look, you've initially I thought I don't think we can get to 3 billion in 10 years, but you might just have convinced me otherwise. Yeah, I think maybe we can. I don't really know what they're defining as a user. Is that just like individual
wallet.
wallets? Yeah, like individual wallets. Like that's a slightly misleading definition in its own right. But I mean, whatever. We can use it as the benchmark.
Actually,
but
that wasn't there a post. Hang on. Yeah.
Number of Bitcoin addresses ever created hits 1 billion. Okay, so it's not the same metric.
How the hell would you even figure it out? Is that like, unless it's like custodial?
Maybe they're using just like some really ancillary data, like Twitter stuff and accounts on exchanges, and maybe it's a collation of all of those sorts of things, and then
somehow
some sort of algo. But I don't know. Let's see. I guess hopefully we're still doing this podcast in 10 years from now, and we can fact check ourselves to see how we went, whether we hit 3.7 billion or not.
Yeah, we'll say. Well, I mean, this actually feeds into this post. I thought so. Documenting Bitcoin, I've got a great Twitter feed. They're always posting cool stuff. I love this. Like the missing piece of the internet is basically the money protocol, and we have it now. So like all this other stuff that we've kind of been drawing. I usually draw an analogy to TCP/IP in terms of like the internet protocol, but there is all these other interconnected protocols, and this is one of them that talks to the rest of it, sort of thing. So I think it's quite a good
I like
way.
that.
It's good. It's a good way to think of it. Like rather than it's like a competing protocol or like this is like the this of that. It fits into the rest of it, and I think that's the right way to think about it.
Yeah, that's good. And like to the point we made earlier, I don't think anyone, myself probably included with much of those pieces of the puzzle, really actually understand what the hell any of it means. I mean, yeah, I've got a very basic understanding of DNS and HTTP and IP and all that sort of stuff. But at the end of the day, the vast majority of people, if you threw a blanket over the population, they wouldn't have any idea that these are the pieces that make up the internet, and nor should they need to. So it's not, this is really cool. I like this. I wish I saw it. I'd give this a retweet. This is cool.
So true. And most of them would probably like maybe have heard, maybe like seen that at the front of a website and go, oh,
maybe. Yeah. Is that like www?
Yeah. What is internet? www. Yeah, cool. Well, I thought that was an interesting one. There was another really good one. I know we're kind of running out of time, but it's all right. It's another good one I wanted to bring. God, made so much stuff the last couple of weeks. Number of nodes has exploded. I thought that was cool because we both built our nodes recently. And yeah, have you migrated to Citadel? Are you still running?
I was actually looking it up just before we jumped on this podcast. They haven't got a smooth transition from the latest Umbrel package that I've got.
Yeah.
So I might just, my option is either wait until they have or just start fresh. So
it was way quicker than I thought it was going to be, actually, like syncing that.
Yeah, look, it took me like 2 to 3 days. It wasn't terrible. I don't have the greatest internet, but it seemed to just chug along. The last couple of percent really struggled.
Yeah.
But it wasn't too bad. So we'll see. I don't know. I'll have a think about it. I looked at the UI and they look pretty similar. So
very similar. Yeah. What I just loved was there's no port forwarding. Like, it just works out the box. So like, it uses Tor to sort of push through your network. And like with my node, with Umbrel, I think like for your Lightning stuff you want to do, or any of the third-party apps that you want to integrate into it, you have to do a lot of port forwarding. So it has to be sitting on that part of your network. So I was like, oh, that's awesome. And they built it, and it's easy as well. So it uses something called Tailsgate. And basically it's an app that sits on there. You can install it on your phone, like a VPN sort of app, and just talks to it from anywhere. And it's quite cool. So that was like my big thing. Like, I had issues with port forwarding for my node, and I think initially like that was the big issue that I had, like setting up Lightning channels and stuff. Like, it just wasn't talking through the network. Because I've got like a split network here. So I ended up like having to connect it to my main router and seeing if that worked, and it was just messy. This was really clean and easy to do. So we should and get a channel up and running between us. I reckon that'd be worthwhile pursuing.
Yeah, let's definitely do that. I was actually looking at the Lightning channels just before as well. I'd like to set one up now. Hadn't really looked at my Umbrel node after I synced it. Got really discouraged by the fact that it was not working to set up and connect like third-party wallets.
Yeah.
So, like, I'd love to get my hardware wallet connected to my node, but apparently that's not as easy as I thought. And then I've like started looking at some of the ones that were apparently easier, like Samurai and a number of other wallets.
Samurai's
and
great. Yeah, I love Samurai.
Even might have not been Samurai, might have been a different one, but one of those like that. And it was like, that one didn't work either. And I was like, I just got really disheveled by it. So I just threw it away, and then life became things. And so, yeah, I want to circle back to it, but yeah, let's definitely open up a Lightning channel. I guess
we'll get it working. And I know my friend Tiggs wanted to do it as well. So we could probably do, it's like 3-way channels you can do. So we should try and set that up. And there's like a service that we can actually utilize for that. It gets a bit complex. Like, there's all different types of channels you can open, but worth playing around with. And I think doing a walkthrough for people might be good as well, because there's not much out there, like in terms of like video content, or even just like step by step, do this, then that sort of thing. So I think
that would be good.
There was a Kaiser one I wanted to show you. Don't know if it was this one or this one, but
when you think about
that's 16 minutes, that's a long one.
So this is
that's 12.
the Vampire.
Another long one. Yeah. It was I'm trying to remember what he was talking about, but it was really, I think it was the adoption one. Skip forward.
Definitely a regulatory issue, where this definitely would require regulatory kind of enforcement, and they're interrupting price discovery, and they're doing so in a way that's manipulative and fraudulent. And it's the perfect opportunity for the SEC to step in and enforce the rules.
And so when you start to think about his next point, he listed ignorance and fear of the asset class, as a lack of technical know-how still terrifies many, as does media coverage telling of the many supposed deaths of Bitcoin. Kind of the sentiment, the conversation, the lack of information being a problem. What is your thoughts there? Agree or disagree?
Oh, that's right. Yeah. The Michael Saylor list 10 things. I don't know if you saw that. It was pretty cool. So it's like Kaiser sort of going over that like together with Pomp, and it was worth a watch anyway. Probably a bit long for now, but yeah, it's quite as like, I mean, as I was saying, I think as we've said every day, probably like how good Sailor is. He just kills it with everything, but worth going back and having a look. But we don't have to go into that now. We'll leave that for now. There's a few other things on there, I think, but that's all right.
Might be a hot tip to bookmark the bitcoinaggregated.com website, so you can just
have a squiz,
have a squiz at all the stuff that's being reposted, because there's some good shit in there.
There's a lot of
we can't get through it all, obviously.
Nah, it's way too much. And that's just me, like, for the most part, posting stuff out that I'm interested in, and I find it really good, like, because you get halfway through an article or something, get distracted, I'm like, oh, what was that? And if I posted it, I can come back to it and sort of pick it up again. So it works good as a Bitcoin bookmarking tool as well. All right, so we might leave the Bitcoin Aggregated podcast there. We'll see you guys either next week or the week after. We'll see how we go. But yeah, thanks, Chris. This was really good.
Thanks, Kieran. Pleasure as always.
Adios.